Glenn is a military analyst, retired U.S. Air Force Special Operations Commander. Today he is in Scottsdale, Arizona. Glenn, thanks for taking time for us in Canada.
Absolutely. Good to meet you.
Israel calling up hundreds of thousands of reservists, amassing some of them at the border. Your take, are we looking at the beginning of a ground invasion?
Yes, I believe so. When you see and you hear Netanyahu saying that this is going to be an extreme invasion and declares actual war, now usually it was just operations before, but an actual war, I don't see anything else other than an actual incursion and actually invasion into Gaza. And I believe the intent is to eliminate Hamas completely.
So are we talking about sort of door-to-door operations and urban warfare, I guess, Glenn?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Because of the density. Now, I mean, some people don't understand, but Gaza is only 25 miles long by approximately 7 miles wide in the largest area and holds 2.5 million people. So door to door is going to be, unfortunately, the case in this situation. And any operation, including the ones that they've already been carrying out, have to be very surgical. Collateral damage is going to be very, very important in this situation. And unfortunately, a lot of people, I think, are going to lose their lives.
You served a long time in the U.S. Air Force. Let me ask you about the Israeli Air Force, their airstrikes and their operations currently in Gaza.
Yes, the Israeli Air Force, I've flown with them many exercises that we have in different engagements, but the Israeli Air Force is one of the best air forces in the world. Honestly, they are fantastic in their capabilities. And when I see the targeting and the operations that are going on, they're being very specific as where they hit and very precise. The hard part, as we were talking about in such a dense city, is it doesn't matter how small the bomb is that it impacts an entire area block and so forth. But the intelligence that Israeli has is very specific, and they do have a lot of historical information on Hamas. And I believe they're going at a lot of the safe houses and other command centers that they absolutely know about.
The U.S. moving warships, including the biggest aircraft carrier that the Navy has, the Gerald Ford, into the region. Your thoughts on what that might mean?
Yes, great question. So the Gerald Ford has moved in that area with the carrier group, who gives a lot of support. I do not see, nor I would expect or want the United States to have any kind of boots on the ground or what I would say direct action. If anything was to happen accidentally with the U.S. taking action that may kill or hurt a Palestinian or an Israeli, it's a lose-lose for America. However, for this operation that is going on, or excuse me, war that is going on, we should support Israel with all logistics, ammunition, anything that they particularly need, fuel and or food, to support them from that warrior group. That includes intelligence and planning support. But as far as direct action with the United States, I think that is something that you're not going to see because of the delicate situation around the world.
This was the worst attack that Israel has faced in decades. I'm curious to get your read on why it wasn't detected in advance by Israeli intelligence.
Yeah, that's always the question that's going on right now. And I'll tell you what I see, and of course, is a little bit of a professional opinion. But, it's been 2 years and it's been pretty quiet. So there is complacency that's insidious. It does creep in, like it or not. And so the idea of seeing some of the tanks and IDF forces that were captured without the tanks moving, shooting, etc., shows me that there was a little complacency. Okay, that's the case there. The other thing is this had to take a significant amount of planning and time. My question was this planned, trained, and mission rehearsed somewhere else? Because 22 incursions plus into Israel simultaneously is phenomenal. And Hamas has never been this coordinated or this well executed in their operations ever before.
Do you suspect the Iranians are behind this to a certain extent anyway?
Absolutely. Look, for years, for decades, we'll have the political rhetoric that'll say, no, Iran's not involved. Iran has been the backing and the support for Hamas and Hezbollah for decades. And that is how they operate, how they're equipped, how they're manned, everything. So to say Iran is not included or connected in any way, shape, or form is absolutely false. And I have to say, if you could look historically, you'll see the statistics, data, and the intelligence that backs that.
Back to the conflict itself. Do you think this is just the beginning, Glenn?
Unfortunately, yes. Again, we're talking about, even though it's 25 by 7, miles, 2.5 million people. And I do agree. I mean, in Afghanistan, Ukraine, Iraq, the idea of any kind of collateral damage or civilian deaths is absolutely horrific. If anything that could happen with the Palestinians helping Israel take Hamas out, that would definitely be better. But I mean, this is something that is so significant. And as you heard Netanyahu, say that this is an act of vengeance and warfare to take care of Hamas. that's pretty much going to be the case. And with tanks, aircraft, and everything going in, unfortunately, there's going to be intense warfare and battles to come, and it's not going to be something overnight.
Yeah, the escalation factor by Hezbollah, from the north in Lebanon, other radical groups as well tied to the Palestinians, Hamas, the Iranians. Could you see this turning into a bigger conflict?
Great question, and I have to agree. I have to agree and say yes. This is the reason why: is you have seen Israel do preemptive strikes in Iran, Iraq, and so forth historically. My concern is this definitely throws a wrench in things from originally the Saudi-Israeli, normalizing operations. But my question will be: is what does Israel do after this? They have a long memory, and will they take out something, or excuse me, carry out an operation in Iran? To be determined, and I don't want to be speculating on that or conspiracy theory, but this has put the entire Middle East on edge, and it doesn't take much for a powder keg to kick off. That's my biggest concerns as you see protests around the world happening already.
We are, and it's happening in our country as well. Glenn, can I ask you as well the latest from Russian President Vladimir Putin, who really seems to be now taking advantage of this and saying this is an example of a U.S. foreign policy failure?
Yes. So I was waiting for this. In fact, we saw this with Zelensky saying, hey, they've invaded Israel like they did with Ukraine, trying to tie it together, because that is the case. But when you see this happening with Putin, Putin has a connection with Iran. Iran has been supporting them with drones and so forth. And when it was in Ukraine, originally Ukraine was defending themselves. And what Putin did was say that they are fighting against NATO and they're fighting against the West, us, as a proxy war. So any way that he can tie the United States into this, it emboldens and absolutely exaggerates things emotionally around the world to put more people against the United States. And if we don't support Israel and so forth, that's going to cause them even more issues. So absolutely, he's capitalizing on this.
And just before we go, Glenn, back to the Israeli military and its capabilities, there's really no doubt here that Israel will win this.
Yes, here's the thing that's tough about this, especially when we're talking about the urban terrain, is that it is so detailed and is so dangerous when we talk about door to door. You can't drop a bomb everywhere and make the place a parking lot. It's going to be very, very surgical. It's going to be very dirty, and it's going to be very bloody. And so I believe that Israel will follow through and take care of Hamas, at least as much as possible. You can never get rid of terrorism completely, but this is something that's going to take a long time. And Israel has all the logistics to back it up. The entire Gaza Strip has been cut off of power, fuel, food, everything. So it's almost like it's going to be attrition, but I think Israel is going to carry through with this.
Glenn Ignazio, military analyst, retired U.S. Air Force Special Operations Commander, joining us from Scottsdale. Some great information, great insights, Glenn. Much appreciated. Thank you for your time today.
Absolutely. Thank you.